Damn, this sun is in my eyes. Hello, welcome YouTube. This is Emperor Dion. So today's topic, I just wanted to go through and talk about what are some advantages or what is the bright side if you're a lonely guy that didn't get girls, and if you are still this guy, and if you're going to be this guy for a very, very long time, what are the advantages of that? Because, like, I've gone through that experience, and there's some things that you might underappreciate that are actually a very, very big benefit to you if you're this kind of guy. Now, to clarify, I'm talking about the advantages of being an incel. To clarify here, I'm not an incel. Okay? I've had to do this thing several times on this channel where I've had to come out and tell people, hey, you think I'm an incel. No, I'm not an incel, sir. And then people get mad. They click unsubscribe and they go bye-bye. Okay, I've had to do this several times. So before we even get into this, let it be known, Emperor Dion is not an incel. However, I did spend 2 decades, damn near, as an incel. So I know what that's like. And so, before we talk about the advantages of it, how could there be advantages of that? Trust me, guys, life is complicated enough to where there's an advantage even in the most unlikely of places. But before we talk about the advantages, let's talk about the obvious disadvantages. One of the disadvantages is that, okay, you're kind of down and out socially. You don't know how to mingle with people because people don't mingle with you. And one of the reasons why you're not able to mingle with people, you don't know how to mingle with people, it's because your confidence and self-esteem has been broken down so much to an unnatural degree. Like, every person humans are supposed to have a natural level of self-esteem, and typically an incel will have a level below what is natural, far below, and people kind of pick up on that, and it's very uncanny because you're not supposed to be that down about yourself. And so that kind of cuts you off at the knees as far as ever being able to successfully mingle with people, because people will pick up on that low self-esteem very, very quickly. And I'm not trying to say, oh, just have confidence, bro. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying a lack of confidence certainly is detectable towards people. And like, they already might not want to mingle with you anyway. But okay, that's just going to be one more thing that's going to turn them off from mingling with you at all. You see, so that's one big disadvantage. Other disadvantages could be that you likely don't have a good relationship with your family because your family feel ashamed. Like, typically when a child fails to integrate into the world and be successful in any meaningful way, that the parents will intuitively take this as a attack to their own self-worth, since they spawn you and you turn out to be pretty much a turd. So, that must mean I'm a turd, is how your parents subconsciously see it. So not just your parents, but your family in general will kind of have a calculation about this similarly too. And so they may come to not like you and treat you bad, and then you in turn come to not like them. Suddenly this spirals into a negative relationship with your family. Yeah, many incels do have bad relationships with their family. I pretty much, to tell you a little bit about me, I don't like anybody in my family whatsoever, and they don't like me. Aside from my cousins, who were less judgmental of me, and my mother. Aside from these people, I don't have a good relationship with my family for the most part. That was certainly the calculation I could tell that certain individuals in my family made about me, that, hey, he's not successful, especially if you're black. Okay, the black family is like, they hinge a lot of their expectations on social value, black people. So if you don't succeed successfully as a black person, it's like a 3 times negative multiplier onto your relationship with them, and thus you're just not gonna really have that good relationship with your family. Just because you an incel, just because you can't get bitches. Okay, so, and then the biggest obvious negative impact of being an incel is that you don't get no vagina. The most direct one too. You don't get pussy. You don't get girls. Girls don't mingle with you. Okay, that's the most obvious and direct one. So these are some of the disadvantages of being incel. These are pretty like on the nose. There's more. Like you can go into how it's harder for you to get employment. It's harder for you to get jobs. You're very likely to have a lower income just because you're an incel, pretty much. You know, it's all related. There's a lot of things that go into it, like worse health outcomes too. You know, check out what happened to King Cobra GFS. There's all these negatives from being an incel. Okay, so how could there possibly be any advantages to being an incel, Emperor Dion? Well, my humble listener, as a monastic, you come to learn many truths about the world that you would not otherwise have discovered. And just like that, so too you find truths and the reality of inceldom that do unlock certain advantages if you're willing to look for them. So the biggest advantage, just right up front, of being an incel, since you've listened to me ramble this long, is that typically most normal people who have relationships and don't have no problems romantically, and they've got like a friend network, social group, you know, they're plugged into the matrix pretty much. People like this typically will experience a lot of things, and most of these things aren't going to result into something that's going to be positive. Okay, so they get roped into the usual systems of society. And many of these systems are exploitative. So, the most obvious example of this is if you're in a relationship, like whether you get married or not, typically what's going to happen, you're going to be in a relationship long term with a girl. You're going to have a kid or two with that girl. Now that, for whatever reason, the relationship breaks down. Typically, and like, so you and this girl are separated. You and your kids are separated. Oh, now the girl can go to the government and get the government to smack you over the head and make you give the woman money for that child that you have with her. That's the most common system that a lot of guys get roped into, you know. Now, this is something that incels, this is just one of them, but there's many other things like this that incels just don't get roped into pretty much. Like, child support is a big one though. Child support is huge on its own, but it's not the only one. I think another example of this too is just the general, like, social issues that can crop up just from you having friends. Like, what if you get a friend that's like jealous of you and starts trying to undermine you in all these various ways too? That's, again, something else that a lot of normal people go through in their lives that end up undermining them. These are things that incels completely sidestep by virtue of not having people. You know, people cause problems. It stands to reason that all the problems that can come out of being around people are going to be things that an incel is going to avoid. And so, now, another thing too is that your ability to avoid things altogether, especially these days, is huge. It's huge. And this is something that an incel naturally has. The ability to sidestep all these normal things that happen to normal people. Suddenly an incel doesn't have to worry about those things. And so there is opportunity to be found in that fact alone. Now, this is only going to matter to incels that have not laid down a rot. Because the problem with a lot of incels is that y'all lay down a rot. And I push back against that with the gold pill. Okay? I push back against that. So, yeah, if you lay down a rot, this isn't going to matter much to you. But if you don't lay down a rot and you're actually, like, kind of ambitious, you know, like I was before I escaped inceldom, yeah, this is something that very much plays into your advantage. The fact that you don't fall into the normal pitfalls that normies fall into. This is huge. This is huge all on its own. But, most of these advantages revolve around the fact that you aren't dealing with people, typically. But another advantage, lesser so thought of, is the fact that a lot of the systems of society, too, are geared up to target specific types of people. But because you're an incel, you fall so far outside of what these algorithms and what these systems and what these people are expecting to rope into their schemes. You fall so far outside of that again, you might end up just sidestepping a lot of these issues that come from this. So it's very much an unintended but positive side effect of being an incel. Okay? Now, another positive that can come out of being an incel is the fact that a lot of incels, I just said, they don't make as much money. But if you do make some money, you're going to have, because you haven't been roped into all kinds of systems and things that normal people fall into, you're going to have much more disposable money to put into investing, to put into travel, to put into any type of self-improvement that you may want to do. You're going to have more financial means only if you are smart enough to utilize it, that is. Because again, if you're the type that wants to lay down and rot, then this isn't going to apply to you either. This is why laying down and rotting is such a bad idea, by the way. In case you haven't gotten the point by now. Laying down and rotting pretty much eliminates all of these advantages that you would get as an incel if you just didn't lay down and rot, you see. So, now, what's another thing I can say about the advantage to being an incel too? Well, this is a lesser known one, number 4, that I'm going to bring up here. But another one is that, okay, you're an incel, that means you haven't been having sex. Okay, that means not only if you avoided STDs, which are quite common out here, but you're also a virgin. And contrary to what manosphere talking points and some of you guys might want to say, I think a good woman, like a good woman that's worth marrying, let's just say, like that type of woman isn't going to want a guy that's like very sexually experienced, contrary to what you might believe. Now, I think a woman that's actually worth a damn as far as marriage is actually going to prefer for you also to be maybe not a virgin, but for damn sure not to have stuck your thing in a bunch of women that are not her. For damn sure. This does work the other way around. Like, I know a lot of guys might want to say, oh, women value guys that are very sexually experienced. Yeah, the type of women that value sexual experience, you don't want to be with those women as far as a marriage. I'm talking about women that are worthy of marriage. Yeah, those women, no, they're not going to appreciate you running around out here sticking your thing in every single bitch that's walking. They're not going to appreciate that. Even if they still might be with you, they ain't going to appreciate it. No, this is going to be a little bit of an advantage if you're an incel and then you overcome being an incel and then you encounter a girl that's like worthy of marriage. This is going to play in your favor more than it won't. Okay? So, I mean, that is also a lesser known advantage to being an incel too. I mean, I could go on. I could probably find many more things, but this video started to run on a bit. And so, I just want to bring up this topic just to show you guys that even in a bad situation, there are still things that you could have as long as you are willing to strive out and capitalize on them that you will have if, that you would not have if you were just a normal guy that had relationships and were able to mingle normally and like you weren't autistic or anything like this, There's advantages even in a bad situation, is what I'm saying here. And this is certainly the case with being an incel too, because I experienced many of these advantages myself. This is the reason why I'm able to bring it up to you. But without letting this video go on for too much longer, this has been Emperor D on the Lion. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Later.